Evil lurks underground, right under our feet. With tentacles and whispers and faceless ones, they'll drive you mad and make you do awful, awful things, like cut in line at the bank or something. Whispers of the Old Gods was the first expansion for the Year of the Kraken, and it brought about all the weird eyeballs, tentacles, and madness you would come to expect from the Old Gods. But much of the cards we play are firmly rooted in the lore of Warcraft. Let's brave the darkness and learn a bit more about them, shall we? Before we start, it's important to know one thing about the world we call Azeroth. It is a slumbering titan, shaper of worlds, and a being of immense power. Azeroth is its egg or cradle or whatever metaphor you want to use. It's sleeping inside the world, and for that reason is why the Old Gods are here. The Void Lords are their masters, and they sent countless Old Gods out into the world to seed planets and find these titan cradles, seeking to corrupt them and make them servants of the Void. 4 such Old Gods landed on Azeroth: Yogg-Saron, Hope's End; N'Zoth the Corruptor; Y'Shaarj, Rage Unbound; and Cthulhu, no title given. Thousands of years ago, when these Old Gods arrived on Azeroth, they established a civilization known as the Black Empire. They subdued the elemental lords of the planet and bound them to their will. This gave them the freedom to dig deep into the earth and spread their corruption. In the process, they created 2 races: the Naraki, or Faceless Ones, and the Akir, their insect servants. They quickly went about building armies and fortresses devoted to their masters, spreading their influence. Their shadowy power fell across the world. Despite their shared goal, the Old Gods fought against one another just as often as they did their enemies. Out of all, Y'Shaarj was the most powerful and N'Zoth the least, though N'Zoth always had a way of making things work out for them despite the outcome. The Titans eventually showed up as they too were looking for their sleeping brethren. They were horrified to find the Old Gods and what they had wrought upon the world, and went about waging war. They created constructs to do their bidding for them, and their first major victory was to defeat the elemental lords and trap them in a separate plane of existence. Helya was instrumental in the creation of this trap in her days working for the Titans. It was here the Titans made their first mistake. Seeking to end the war quickly, Aman-Thul reached down to the planet directly and ripped Y'Shaarj from it, creating a tremendous wound. Y'Shaarj's death cursed the land he inhabited with the creatures known as the Sha, manifestations of negative emotions. Not willing to risk opening another wound, the Titans built containment facilities for the other 3 and imprisoned them. This defeat would be the last Azeroth would see of the Black Empire, but not of the Old Gods. The Titans left Azeroth, and the Old Gods festered beneath the surface as life blossomed on its surface. Though they were no longer able to command vast armies, their powers of corruption were unmatched in the world. They reached out slowly to the minds of those on the surface, but were unable to corrupt the iron machines of the Titans. So instead they created the Curse of Flesh, turning these constructs into humans, dwarves, and gnomes. These were creatures they could corrupt. Over the years, their relics and whispers corrupted many. The Old Gods were responsible for the summoning of Ragnaros and the subsequent enslavement of the Dark Iron Dwarves. They were responsible for corrupting Cho'Gall upon his arrival on Azeroth, and the takeover of the Twilight's Hammer clan, turning into an occult. They corrupted Neltharion, turning him into the fearsome Deathwing and bringing ruin to all dragonflights. It was very rare that any who came into contact with the Old Gods' power was left uncorrupted. We've met some of the Old Gods already. Cthulhu in Silithus was responsible for the War of the Sands and was taken down in the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj raid. Yogg-Saron was deep in Ulduar, and we freed the Titan Washers from his corruption, taking him down as well. And Y'Shaarj left his mark during the Pandaria campaign with his Sha as various bosses, and his heart being used to power Garrosh Hellscream's vision of conquest. But the one we have yet to encounter is N'Zoth, who is sleeping under the sea. He is responsible for the creation of the Naga and the corruption of the Emerald Dream into the Emerald Nightmare. He's also rumored to be responsible for the corruption of Deathwing. Most attribute the Emerald Dream one to Yogg-Saron, but Yogg-Saron merely opened the door for N'Zoth to spread his corruption. This final Old God may have been considered the weakest at the beginning, but he has had a long time to prepare many plans for his eventual confrontation with the heroes of Azeroth. Although the Old Gods themselves are the focus of this expansion, there are a variety of other cards to talk about that have great lore behind them. Now, the cultist cards are from the Twilight's Hammer, formerly an Orcish clan that came over from Draenor that was corrupted and now accept worshippers of any race. There's also a set of corrupted cards that are similar to previously released cards, but now with the added touch of the Old Gods' corruption to them. Twin Emperor Vek-Lor is one of the bosses in the Temple of Ahn'Qiraj where you fight Cthulhu, so it's only fitting there's ability to summon the other emperors linked to Cthulhu. The 2 races mentioned before, the Naraki and the Akir, are represented in full force as well. And of course, Deathwing is one of the Old Gods' most powerful minions. Fandral, Staghelm, Cho'Gall, and Malkorok were all important lore figures who betrayed their people in favor of the power of the old gods. I'd add Archbishop Benedictus to this, but he wasn't released in this set. He was over in Frozen Throne. Ragnaros the Light Lord is a different take on corruption. Given he was already a minion of the old gods, why not corrupt him in the opposite way? Whether in Standard or Wild, the corruption of the old gods has already sunk deep into the card collections of Hearthstone. I'm sure we've not seen the last of these terrifying figures on the field. After all, who can resist their dread whispers calling up from the darkness? Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons, and take care, everybody.